Good afternoon, everyone. This is Aiden from SJT Press. SJT stands for Security and Justice for Tigrayan People. It's one of the organizations that's been fighting for the people of Tigray since the Ethiopian government declared a civil war in the state of Tigray in November 4th, 2020. Tigray is the core state which contributed the most for building the nation. Most of the history, cultural values, patriotism, ancient civilization that Ethiopia is proud today are gifts of Tigray. The constitution, including the invention of Ge'ez alphabet, the numeric system, the musical notes, indigenous philosophy, government system, and rules of law, and the unique architectural practices and heroism in defending the Ethiopia from colonization and the harmonization of the Christian and Muslim religion for centuries are from Tigray. And Tigray is also known for its hardworking and peace-loving people. And today I'm coming to you to discuss about the Tigray genocide, how we can improve our activism. And I do have three prominent community allies who've been using their time, their profession, their resources to relentlessly fight to lift the siege in Tigray and for the people of Tigray. The first guest I have is Erica Bachman, who's from Dallas, Texas. She is a practicing attorney and has been handwriting letters to the Biden administration and the State Department, pleading with them to intervene to lift the siege in Tigray. My second guest is Brother Jeff, who's from Denver, Colorado. He's a community organizer and works at Brother Jeff Cultural Center. He has produced over 100, I'm pretty sure he's going to reach 1,000 soon, videos in regards to awareness in regards to the Tigray genocide, the famine, as well as what we need to do to assist the people of Tigray. Last but not least, I have Russell, who's a media mogul and a communications expert who's here to discuss with us how we can use social media to improve our advocacy work, as well as utilizing it to reach different communities. He is also one of the allies who's been fighting with us from day one. So without further ado, Erica, if you would like to start introducing yourself and the work that you've been doing for Tigray, and then we're going to go to Brother Jeff and Russell afterwards. Thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate you, and please go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Erica, and I learned about Tigray and what has been happening there from a friend that I met while running. And he was sharing things on Facebook, and as a human being, more as a human than even an American, it just struck me, and it was something I wanted to learn more about and do what I could to help. So that's how I got involved.
Amazing. Great. Brother Jeff?
Aiden, thank you for having me. And then also to everyone with SJT, I certainly appreciate it. I've been following this genocide for 642 days. It's 642 days now. One of the reasons that I became familiar is that I've spent a lot of time within Ethiopia and different parts of Africa as a humanitarian, and also just doing research. So I've been in Tigray, I've been in Finfini, I've been in Dire Dawa, Harar, I've been Bahadar, all throughout the area. And we were entering into a relationship with Brother Jeff's Cultural Center and then also the University of Mekelle. And then the communication stopped, and that signaled something terribly wrong. And we subsequently learned it was the beginning of a genocide.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Russell?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Thank you for having me on. Um, I got connected a couple of months ago through my good friend Daniel Dallas. We met back in the '90s at Brookhaven College, and that at Brookhaven College was kind of like a catalyst for me to crossing barriers in multiple demographics. And in Dallas, I do that for the music, the fashion, the entrepreneurial scene, and the African American, Afro Caribbean communities. And when Daniel contacted me and let me know, uh, I broke down crying on the phone because I mean, he's like family to me. So if you're not part of the problem, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I truly believe that. So I want to, use all my resources and access to help any way I can to try to not just conquer but overcome the Tigray genocide.
Great. Thank you so much for that. So you kind of touched on the few questions that I would like to ask you in a sense. Do you remember the first time you heard about Tigray genocide, and what was your, I guess, take on it? I know there's so many misinformations out there. I personally was, as a Tigrayan, it was a bit confusing for me to say, how can, your own government try to attack or kill your own people? So what was your take on it? Was it confusing to you when you heard about it first? And when did you decide to get involved? I know, Brother Jeff, you kind of touched on it, but if you would like to start, and then I'll go to Erica and then Russell.
Well, it was very strange because I had also followed the Rwanda genocide that took place over 100 days. And there are certain progressions as you deal with a genocide, particularly misinformation, obscurity as it relates to the why. And everything that we saw taking place in Rwanda began to take place within Ethiopia. For example, I was very surprised to see that Eritrean troops were inside of a sovereign nation attacking the citizens of said nation with individuals inside of the nation clapping, cheering, and celebrating. That was the first indication to me that something was horribly wrong, because that looks like treason to me, first and foremost. However, from there, it just began to escalate in terms of just concerning dynamics, including the story about my cadre and, this massacre. And I was wondering, well, if the Tigrayans are massacring someone, why are they the ones filling up refugee camps? And so I could go on and on with the reasons that sparked my attention, but I knew it was shrouded behind the US election. And so with all of those dynamics coming to play, I began to look more closely.
It sounds about right. That sounds right. Erica?
Yeah, for me, it was something similar. I had studied a lot about the Rwandan genocide, and I had actually been to Bosnia shortly after the war there, and just learned about the siege of Sarajevo and how, intervention from organizations can help, but the humanitarian aspect is definitely what struck me as needing action.
Right. Great point. Russell?
Well, when I first found out about it, I was a little confused as well because going back with Daniel, like over 20 years, I've gone to these festivals that we have in Dallas, the soccer and the whole community comes out, and I'm thinking like Ethiopia is monolithic. This is like a whole brand new course for me to know that there's different regions. Like America, we have 50 states, we got the South, but it's very important not to become complacent or become common with the genocidal activity. America should have learned that from what we did to the Jewish people back in World War II. They came running away from Hitler, and we said, no, we don't want to be a part of that. And look what happened, because we didn't get in earlier, 6 million Jewish people perished. So I know we can't be the security guard or the police officer for the world, but when such dramatic things have been coming out of Tigray, I think something needs to be done. I mean, we need to kick somebody or something, because we got to make it make sense before, we get make it wholesale. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Aiden, can I follow up on something that Russell said that I'd really like to underscore? And he, like most, and particularly myself and those in the diaspora, believe that Ethiopia was monolithic. Like hearing Ethiopia and Ethiopians was synonymous with, this illusion of solidarity, if you will. It wasn't until this genocide kicked off that I realized that Ethiopia is far from monolithic. I'm talking 80 ethnic, different varieties of languages at any particular time. And this is a fledgling nation that had wrestled with all of those dynamics, while those of us on the outside didn't even realize what was going on or what we were even watching.
And
Exactly.
I think the Nobel Peace Prize in many ways made us think that things were on a different trajectory, and we didn't realize where that was leading.
Yeah. Great point, everyone. Great point. And that's a great segue to my next question. The reality was, I think that, like I said, even as a native Tigrayan, it was hard for me to understand what is happening in the beginning, because as Brother Jeff mentioned, the entire invasion of Tigray was actually masked by the US election here. So everyone was in a frantic mode about what's going to happen here. And once it started, it was predictable in a sense, because Tigray there were signals that showed that there might be something happening. For example, the budget for Tigray was cut in 2018 once Abiy Ahmed came into office as an interim leader. So there was a few things that signs we were seeing, but we didn't realize until actually happened. So my next segue question for you guys would be, based on your experience and what is the most effective way of campaigning against genocide, what are the factors that affect the effectiveness of the response from the international community? I would, as you might imagine, the Tigray community has not stopped since day one. We've been advocating nonstop, especially with the US voters, Congress, to make a decision on the petitions that have been signed already. So what do you think is most effective in pushing them further to make a decision on those bills to pass quickly?
I can go first.
Yeah, Erica, go ahead. Sorry.
Contacting your legislators is something that very few Americans do. And having just gone to college in DC and having a million friends who opened mail for people on the Hill, every single piece of correspondence that they get is logged. And at some point, if they see Ethiopian stability as something that's showing up on their radar, one of their constituents is concerned about it, or hundreds of their constituents are concerned about it with regularity, that's something that, in my experience, is not ignored. It's not going to be necessarily their top priority, but sometimes I think being that squeaky wheel and reminding them that you care is important.
Correct. Our community, like I said, we've been relentless nonstop. Whether it's calling, we have the click to call campaign. We have to tweet to reach out to your Congress. There's different things that we set up. It's just that once it gets to the State Department as well as Congress, it just seems like they're just sitting on it, and that's the problem that we're having. So, Brother Jeff, would you like to contribute a bit?
I would like to, but I'd like to be candid also in my response, because sometimes, some of the things I say rub individuals the wrong way. But I will say that I've come to the conclusion that this genocide is sanctioned. It's sanctioned at the highest levels and with those in Western and US powers. They know exactly what is taking place. It didn't take a hearing. It doesn't take another survey, study, or report, because we see a very different response in Ukraine, where the exact same dynamics are being discussed in terms of children being targeted, hospitals being targeted, civilians being targeted, widespread displacement. And there was none of this, well, we need to go on a fact-finding mission. So this tells me that genocides are planned very early on. I'm not saying that the Western powers and the U.S. are complicit in a genocide. However, I am saying that they know a lot more than we do. And with the Tigrayan diaspora forces for 642 days, highlighting, sharing, writing, having senators, pass not only resolutions, but now talking about food insecurity, et cetera. They know exactly what is taking place. So what needs to happen is, I believe that the Tigray community cannot be complacent and cannot let up. They must be more firm than ever, expand their allies, and give the information in various languages and not talk to just themselves, and continue to build that momentum. And at the end of the day, it is stop the Tigray genocide. That is what has to happen immediately before they start talking about peace talks, start talking about politics. We're talking, or I'm talking as a humanitarian, as it relates to the cost of human lives. And so I applaud everything that is being done. I would say redouble your efforts. And finally, I would say do not stop fighting. There has never been a genocide that I have studied that has ended with negotiations. It has always ended with military intervention, et cetera. And so for those who think that this is going to be something different and that the TDF should lay down their arms, et cetera, that would be a terrible mistake, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And the other thing that I would like to add to this is the Armenian genocide. It just got resolution, if I'm not mistaken, a month ago. It was ruled that it was a genocide. So I don't know. I was with my friends who are Armenian, kind of doing the same advocacy work, and to me, it was the silver lining in that. Like, I didn't know I was going to be doing the same thing for my own community a few, I guess, 8 months later. So here we are. Russ, would you like to?
Man, I'm with you, Brother Jeff. But I want to add a little bit more to that. When you look at the comparison with Ukraine and Tigray, genocide is genocide. American interest adds a whole nother level of insanity, because, for an example, the Kurds, right? They were under attack in Turkey. The Kurds were our friends. They helped fight against Saddam Hussein. You know what I'm saying? You would think that we would have jumped. We didn't. We let Turkey go in and kill a lot of them. The same thing with Osama bin Laden. That was our guy. We were friends because he was killing off the Soviets. But once they did the dirty work for America, we don't know you no more, right? So the needs that they had, the Saudi Arabian, well, he wasn't in Saudi Arabia, he was more like in Pakistan. We just turned an eye. So the ugly thing about American capitalism is the what's in it for me. You know, if it affects me, then I jump in. You know, like we didn't jump into World War II until we got hit by Japan. We see a what's in it for me in Ukraine is money. All the military organizations like Boeing and all the companies that make the bombs, we're making hand over fist. War makes money for America, so that's the what's in it for me. So to answer your question, I'm thinking like what happened in Vietnam, right? In Vietnam, you had entrenched media that was on the nightly news. America got to see war. If there was that kind of access in Tigray to where we were able to get into in their living rooms, watching TV or on their tablets on a regular basis, to where we saw it. Even if there's not a monetary interest, there's a human element, a human interest that if we see people dying the way that they're dying, and the way I don't even think it's really nice for me to talk about, how Danny has described all the atrocities. I don't think that's even proper to talk. It's so bad. But if we had access, because people in the community know it, like Brother Jeff was saying, people in the community know what's going on. But until we get allies in different communities and cultures, with America having 300 plus million people, if we can get the masses behind it, then America will stand in.
Absolutely. I think that the biggest frustration for our community has been with the information that's already known. You don't even have to go digging for it. Like, there's a lot of videos that have been released by the Ethiopian government troops. To them, it's a trophy. Killing people is a trophy. So seeing that, and also the U.S. knowing what goes in and out, it's just it's hard for us to just. You see the evidence. You see that there is a genocide happening. On top of that, now, since the war has been prolonged, there's a famine, and that's the hardest part. So if you're going to make peace, at least lift the siege in Tigray and go to your negotiation. That's the difficult part. So my follow-up question for us here would be, if there are any other tips or best practices that you would like to share in order to augment the Tigray advocacy struggle, because like I said, there's too many information out there. We have been trying our best to also bring in different communities and allies, but the reality is I feel like we're kind of hitting the wall. So if there's any best practices you can share, that would be great.
Let me go ahead and start, because I'm at the bottom. Let's go backwards.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that's a great question, to a segue leading from the last one. The last thing I left off is, yes, there are videos. Yes, there's documentation.
Yeah.
But the enemy of documentation and videos is algorithms. We have so much information that's competing for our attention. If we don't know how to master the algorithms, we won't see. Because like with Vietnam, that was in primetime news every night. So that's how we started to get the anti-war sentiment in America, as we saw it. So the best practices for me as a communications guy is we know who we are in the community. We know our strengths. We need to get influencers. We need to get people that are on social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and flood. Get the information out. Once you get the eyes and the attention, then I think that's going to be the best thing. It's about just getting the word out and thinking of new ways, because genocide is nothing new. War is nothing new. We have history of how we've overcome genocide and war before, and how we got people's attention before. So we need to revisit, like what Brother Jeff has done with the research. He knows, right? So he gets the guys like me and other influencers to start reporting, like on all platforms, and not just in the Tigray neighborhood. Let's get some people that are like, they're mostly friends or African Americans, or mostly friends white, and really start pushing. Like, if you're an evangelist for Christ, start pushing like, this is like, nothing else matters. We need to be talking about this.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Go ahead, Brother Jeff.
I love exactly what everyone is saying. And I look at this as a twofold issue. One, I don't let individuals draw me into the politics of the conversation. I'm the type of person who says, first of all, genocide is wrong. Systemic rape is wrong. Starvation is wrong. Isolating individuals from communication is wrong. Having a foreign nation inside of a sovereign nation, all of that is wrong. And it's documented. There's a report, Amnesty International report, which talks about, I don't even know if they knew I was human. I bring it from a humanitarian standpoint, because it's a matter of the heart. If I'm able to touch your heart and just say, you know what, I don't care where it's happening on the planet, and I don't care who it's happening to. My humanity is what will speak volumes. However, the other side has been effective in drawing this into a political conversation and muddying the water and saying, well, yes, there's genocide, but let's talk about the TPLF, without saying, you know what, the TPLF is a political party, you know, and if you're talking about a democracy and the rule of law, then you're going to hold individuals accountable. We know that genocides are planned and individuals need to be held accountable for a genocide. So my advice is, one, speak to the human element and continue to speak to the human element. And then two, as the Tagaru community, I urge you to stay united, because if you think of the various political parties inside of just the Tagaran community, it's not a monolith either. However, if you look at a military, a small band that was able to fight from Tigray and go all the way to the footsteps of Finfini and was able to actualize self-determination until those foreign powers provided military support, drone support, etc., that tells you that there's a need to have continued unity. And at this point, I believe that in the process of genocide, you will start to see collaborators that will collaborate with the other side for personal interests outside of the collective well-being and the message of stopping the genocide in Tigray. Stay united, stay focused, and continue to fight for the humanity of your community.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think there's so much we can do to further that, and bringing in even other communities. There is an organization that we're collaborating with. It's called the Solidarity of Nations, which brings in everyone, every ethnic group that's been oppressed by the Abiy Ahmed regime, to come together and actually push them out so that they can get their own sovereignty and independence and being able to live the life that they deserve and we deserve. Erica?
Yeah, I would agree that I think it's important to try to keep the politics out, and including what happens later, whether there is something like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission or otherwise. That, I think, is down the road. The priority has to be the humanitarian access, ending the genocide, keeping people safe. And I think the more you can humanize that and obviously publicize that, when there's a story on PBS NewsHour, it's something that I'm always noticing and saying to other people, oh, did you see that? Did you hear this? Same with, BBC News and stuff. When there's that widespread coverage, I think keeping the focus on the humanitarian aspect is important. And that is, I think, what resonates with people. Because absolutely. Politics is complicated.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do want to thank you for also being part of our community. And Danny also had informed me that you've been writing letters to the Biden administration. So I applaud you for taking action and for standing up for humanity. Brother Jeff, likewise, same. I know you've done hundreds of podcasts, hundreds of YouTube channels on the Tigray genocide. And what I loved about your show is actually, to be honest with you, I follow along. I know I'm a couple of videos behind, but the fact that the misuse of Pan-Africanism, especially when it comes from the African community on this genocide, that was, to me, was heartbreaking to see that Africans doing that, Ethiopians doing that. So I applaud you for keeping them engaged, for fixing the misinformation in that regard. So I want to say thank you. I would like to give everyone their flowers while they're here. So that's part of me from personally and from our community. I would like to say thank you so much for doing that. Russell, you have also been doing a great job. Danny has been informing me about the minute you heard about the genocide. You have been very willing to spread awareness as well as come up with creative ways and in bringing in different communities to help as well. So this is it for us. I appreciate you taking your time for coming in. If you have any last words you would like to say to the people of Tigray, to our community, this is your chance. Anyone can start.
Erica?
Erica, would you like to start?
Ladies
Hell.
first.
Yeah, go for it. You got this. You got this.
I think the key is definitely to stay involved and not relent, to make clear that this is something that's important and it's not going away on its own.
Yeah. Russell?
Russell?
Use me. That's my statement, is use me. I have resources at my attention. I deal with like a lot of demographic communities, but use me, like to draw my attention, because I do believe that I can be effective when people, let's say, hey, Russell, I want to be a part of this. And then I bring you to their community, and then you're able to speak to it better than me. Like I was telling Danny, it's like it's more genuine when somebody from the community is talking about it. But I'm from the camp is that I don't want people to have the mindset of just talking about it. I would really want to see people start to get a call to action, because America didn't just talk about it. When there was bloodshed, in the American Revolution. You saw what happened on January 6th here in DC. I mean, that was crazy, but it got America's attention of that organization they did something, So I'm not saying do anything violent in America or anywhere else in the world that's supporting, but let's not just be comfortable with hanging out and talking about it, put some juice to it. I mean, that's just me.
Agreed. Brother Jeff?
I would just, again, say, I don't want to mince words around, is it or is not a genocide? There is a genocide taking place. It has been 642 days. That is unacceptable. And we want to let the Tigray community know that, your struggle, your fight is just, and you can see by the diversity that's exhibited right here on this platform in this particular show, that there are a lot of good people around the world that know what's going on. They're doing what they can in their sphere of influence, and just know that this genocide will come to an end. It's heartbreaking to know that the Armenian genocide has been recognized as a genocide. However, once you recognize a genocide, that means it has already happened. We need to get further down the line and say, you know what, we're going to stop this so women and children and family members are not going to be raped. Starvation is not going to continue. We're going to open up the lines of communication in the siege, and it's going to take each and every one of us. I've been a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, and that extends to a universal standpoint. So Black Lives Matter is just not a movement in the U.S. It extends to Tigray and worldwide. And my final words would be Tigray Tisser.
Tigray Tisser. Well stated. Well closing.
Thank you so genocide.
Tigray Tisser. That's right. Well, thank you so much for coming again. As Brother Jeff just closed out our remarks, I would like to say the same thing, that what's happening here in the U.S. affects what's happening in Tigray. What's happening in Tigray affects what's happening in the U.S. and globally. So it might be, an international matter, but it is a national matter as well. And without further ado, have a blessed Sunday. Thank you for coming in, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. I was at SCHC as well, or any other means. I'm on social media as well. So please reach out. Have a great day. Have a great week. Tigray Tisser.
Tigray Tisser.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Aiden.
You're welcome. Have a great day.